The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and, I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
They believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploiting the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break a balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not
Let's go to the last part.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug.
You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of have to stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man is being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism
to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
WESN.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to AM Prime on WESN. I am Naomi Macnish.
And I am Jada McLeod.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Today's Friday.
Yay, Friday! I'm so happy, guys.
Yes,
so happy.
We made it through another week.
We did. And we did it successfully, too.
Yes.
Yes, of course. So happy morning and happy Friday to you guys. We hope that you will be having a fantastic day and a fantastic start to your morning. And because you chose to start it with us.
Of course.
Yeah, so thank you for that.
Nothing better.
So today we have a fun-filled, jam-packed show for you guys. As it is Friday, it's a special treat. We'll be continuing the conversations on politics and elections. And then we have some sweet treats. Mm-hmm. And then some fun, just a little fun for you guys. So yes, to start off the day, to kick off the show, we're going to jump right into it. So with Trinidad and Tobago standing at political crossroads, the landscape is shifting rapidly from evolving relations with global powers like the US and the UK to discussions on potential gold investments and the upcoming 2025 elections. Major decisions lie ahead that could redefine our nation's future. To break down these critical developments and what they mean for the country, we are joined by esteemed political analyst Dr. Vanis James. Dr. James, welcome to AM Prime. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I am doing fine myself. I'm glad to be sitting down having this conversation with someone like yourself. And I'm sure Naomi is glad as well. All right. So first question. What are the things that analysts like yourself look to describe our political climate? Just kind of set the stage.
Well, I see everything through the lens of my profession as an economist, not as a political analyst. And I interpret what's going on in the country in terms of how well the leaders and the population are causing development in the economy. That would be the basic framework that I would use. And from that perspective, I think we're not doing well. Our economy remains in the essentially where it was when the PNM took office. Not in any way transformed, not shifted in any way from the problems that the PNM inherited 10 years ago, and no sign that there will be a set of fundamental changes that could give us a chance to move the agenda forward. Fundamentally, the Constitution remains inappropriate for development purposes. It remains an authoritarian system of cabinet government that we are running. And you can't develop an economy anywhere in the Caribbean on that basis. The evidence you have in front of you indicates that for all the region, not just for Trinidad and Tobago. Secondly, we are still excessively dependent on oil and gas for our development thrust, because what we're doing with manufacturing has proven to be ineffective and inadequate from the point of view of causing economic development. We're not diversifying our economy, as you would say in Trinidad. So on those two fundamental fronts, our biggest development project has not yet been launched. That's the reform of the Constitution. And our diversification agenda depends on that no progress has been made in that area. And so in general, we're stuck in the mud.
So after 10 years, there's been hardly any change. That's quite dystopian, if I may call it that.
Well, it's the evidence in front of you. It's not that's what I'm saying. I'm giving you evidence and economics, not a political
overview. But I still want to keep the conversation a little bit on politics, because you would have an informed opinion, an informed view as well. So yes. in your own view, do you see the traditional two-party dominance continuing, or do you think that there's room for, personally, in your personal opinion, do you think that there's room for a significant third force in Trinidad and Tobago's?
It's likely to continue because of the authoritarian design of the system. It's very difficult for a third party to break through because the two-party structure is fundamentally built around racial networking, let me put it that way. And so the UNC is predominantly a party anchored in the East Indian heritage, and the PNM is, and it campaigns that way as a party anchored on some kind of African loyalty. We've in Trinidad we've tried to build a middle ground. We had a number of efforts in that regard. NJAC from 1970, TAPIA, COP, and so on. But none of that, and even something like the Alliance, the NAR, and then you take something like the People's Partnership and so on. But none of them survived with any significant political clout. Of course, ONR was there as part of that agenda as well. All of them have failed signally, because in the end, because the system is authoritarian, the most important thing about government is that you win the cabinet, you win control of the executive. So the people don't go to parliament primarily to make good law. The majority of reps go to parliament to be in the cabinet. And once you have that kind of system, ethnic loyalties have something to bite on, to motivate politics, because the most important thing is to capture it. And it doesn't have anything to do with making good policy. And so at the end of the day, we're stuck in that mode with these two broad ethnic groups that are vying to control the executive because their whole life depends on it. And if we are caught in that mind, the only way out of it is to change the constitution so that we could make good law the primary motivation for people going into office.
How difficult is that?
Well, it's been 60 plus years now, and it's been hard to do. I mean, the biggest push that in my lifetime was the push in 1970, which we joined as a bunch of young people, 1970, and the immediate years thereafter that bred NJAC and Tapia. But and of course the work by James Millett and the union movement and so on that brought out Basdio Pandey and all of that. But it's proven that the authoritarian habits of the society coming from strict indenture and slavery are I mean, so ingrained in everything we're doing, all over the system, in the schools, in the churches, in the parties, in the political parties, and so on. It's so ingrained that it takes a lot of education, and it may take decades and maybe centuries before we learn how to overcome that. But the other part of the problem, of course, is that once people win office, no matter what they promise you, once they win office, the power of the executive is so intoxicating that they lose the motivation to share power. And constitutional reform that will work for the country is about power sharing. So it's not going to be easy to break out of that mold. We're going to have to revisit again the issue of another bunch of people who are willing to fight for constitutional reform, power sharing, power to the people, and stuff like that, and then hope that once they win, they keep the commitment. No, that's my point. It's not a simple problem. It's very, very difficult. And every time you put it to the population by and large agrees with you. But every time you win office, the power of the executive intervenes and intoxicates the politicians. And that's what used to happen with NAR, for example. NAR got 33 of the 36 seats and didn't make any change. And we see it here in Tobago, you see, where the PDP won 14 out of the 15 seats and refused to make any change.
Yeah.
It's not that they're wicked, it's just the intoxication of power.
Dr. James, I just want to, I mean, these are some good points being raised here, but I want to go back a little bit to Jada's question. And we understand, we know that change is inevitable. Change is something that I think we as a society, we want desperately, especially, you know, this has been conversations that are constantly coming up. They're coming up all the time. Change, we want something different. So with regard to, you know, the two-party dominance, how do you think we as voters and, you know, members of this society, what aspect do you think we should zone in on, you know, wanting this change? How do we go about even understanding, you know, what exactly is the change that we want to see? Because the two-party dominance, we can't just say, you know, we want a third party to come about and that's where we'll get the change, because like you said, it's not that simple. It's not going to happen, you know, like that. So if we're looking at the two-party dominance, you know, where should we expect this change to come from?
Well, what you're basically asking me is, what should the population think about coming into the elections coming up, for example? See where we go from here. I think, first of all, the population has to learn from our history that you can't leave any party in power if they're not doing the constitutional reform. So you got to remove the PNM this round. and hold your nose if necessary and put the UNC in power. And in the course of the campaign, all of us make the case to the public that the reason we want to remove the PN is we want to put a party in power that will make the fundamental changes, get us started on the road to develop. Now, that's not a cynical interpretation. After watching this for 70 years in my lifetime, I can tell you that it's not going to be a third party that will upset the apple cart easily because of the two forces I'm telling you about. And you see it not just in Trinidad and Tobago. Look at Jamaica with the PNP and the GLP. They don't have any race problems. But you have the same phenomenon because the inherited system causes the problem I'm talking about. So you can't let anybody settle in and keep not performing and be given a pass mark at the end of their term. You have to remove them and send the message we're not satisfied with the system of government. And all of us have to campaign. Not just, I think the media needs to understand that as well. You need to look at the system, understand what is required for the development of the society, and promote what is in the public interest. Now, I know some media houses, for example, take the view that once you're involved in the campaign, we're not going to give you any coverage. But that is not going to work if you want to make fundamental changes in the country. You're going to have everybody, media and all. That's the way the Express emerged when it started as a newspaper when I was a young fellow. You have to take a position in the public interest. And in that collective broad campaign, even though the ethnic groups will song and fury, what we still, all of us have to do is say the reason we're giving you a chance to govern the country is to push this agenda of fundamental political system change and economic system change. And if you don't do it, we will remove you next time.
But speaking of cynicism, you said, and I'm just going to quote you here, it's not that they're wicked, but the intoxication of power can kind of cause that. Can't those two things be conflated in a way? Like, if you have the intoxified on power, then yeah, you're wicked. You're wicked. And how is that going to change if we put somebody else in power?
Well, let me be more careful with my language. I myself don't think from my observation and from my knowledge of the actual that you're dealing with wickedness. What much more you're dealing with is incompetence. Is that social learning is a slow process, especially in an authoritarian world. And so I would have campaigned, but over 5 years, you spend a lot of time, you talk to people, you explain the data. You provide the science. You see, well, this is what this data suggests about where we've come from and where we are now and where we ought to be trying to go. These are the pressures of the modern world. This is the way success is defined and achieved in the modern world. So people would say, okay, yeah, we agree with that. So that sounds to me like a world in which something goes through one end and comes out the other, and you say yes to win office. You make the promise to pursue fundamental change, but once you get office, that's the end of the agenda. So what has to happen, in my view, is that we face up to the fact that the real issue before us is not the wickedness of people, it's the lack of knowledge and skills. And you can't acquire the knowledge and skills required to move the system forward in the current constitutional framework. The barrier to learning is the key thing here. What we have is a system which blocks learning because the information sharing and communication is very limited in an authoritarian cabinet run, executive council run government. Very limited. You can't, most people who know something in the public service can't share what they know. The government is not set up so that all the citizens can participate in hearings about issues and so on.
Yes,
So
yeah.
the government operates with 10% of the information it needs in order to make good policy. So we have to recognize that this is a limited information system that we're running. And the consequence of that understanding for the public is that it will push for the kinds of changes we need. And when you make that case to the public, in every case from 1970 to now, the public has responded positive. Even when the PNM first won office under Eric Williams, the promise was about education and a whole set of positive issues that people resonated with people, and people responded to that. And in many ways, that's the basis of the credibility of the PNM to this day, because they've not revised their thinking ever since, and they've remained steadfast and resolutely against constitutional reform. You saw it last year with Rowley. He promised in January of 2024 we will do constitutional reform, and by the end of the year he was battling with a terrible bill in the parliament around Tobago, refusing to understand that you need thoroughgoing constitutional reform even for autonomy to work in Tobago. You can't get autonomy to work in Tobago unless the whole country is set up properly to make joint, sensible policies. So the end result of all of that is that we have to systematically acquire the courage as a population outside of the two main parties to campaign for change, campaign for constitutional reform, campaign for economic reform, and to do that while learning the lesson that you can't reward the PNM for 10 years of ranking competence, quite frankly, in my view.
Dr. James, I just want to, you previously, you meant, like you would have said, I want to feed off of this a little bit, that, you know, and I'm paraphrasing here, so correct me if need be, but the government coming, the next government to come in, whether it be PNM, UNC, you know, they would have to deal with all the previous years of mishaps and you know, things that went wrong in our economy. So I would have read somewhere about various loans that the government would have taken where repayment needs to begin in 2030, you know. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that, if, you know, the impact on that on our economy, and what does that mean for, you know, the next government to come, that comes into power?
Well, I mean, we have to meet our commitments. If you're asking about loan commitments, the current government has, the PNM took in order to tide over the circumstances we confronted. Well, first of all, as a nation, we meet our commitments. So if we're seeing payments coming due in 2030, we start setting our houses in order now, so that what we're going to be able to do in 2030 is either renegotiate the terms of payment or meet the commitments, one way or the other. As a nation, you can't risk failing on those commitments, because the result of that kind of failure would be that you're shut out of the international credit market in the end, and the consequence of that would be disastrous for efforts to finance development initiatives. So you can't take any chance on that. You have to meet those commitments. But in order to put yourself in a position where you could begin to activate the capacities of our people all over the country, in all our communities and so on, in order to be able to change the economic trajectory, you have no choice but to reform the Constitution. You have to recognize the rights of communities in the country and facilitate them to be able to become part of an entrepreneurial state. The evidence you have in front of you is that the state is not good at entrepreneurship as such. It's pretty much failed in all its business endeavors. Point leases hasn't really worked. We saw what happened with Petrotrin and the way that panned out. Anywhere the state has gone into business, so to say, in Tobago, Magdalena is owned by the state, it ain't going nowhere, and all of that sort of stuff. So we know in principle that you need a different kind of entrepreneurial state. And in my mind, and based on the analysis that I've been doing around the region and around the world, the entrepreneurship that would become feasible is the entrepreneurship that is practiced by nimble communities. So you have to recognize them in the Constitution, give them budgetary rights and other things like those, and set them a right to do business. And there are businesses that, if you look at the cases like Malta and other places like those, there are things we can do at our community level that will transform the economy in under 50 years.
So speaking of building up, speaking of building up the economy, and before you were talking about diversification, so there's been a little bit of talk in Trinidad and Tobago about investing in gold. So what do you think may be driving this discussion? Is it the same diversification, or are there other factors at play?
No, I think you can be mesmerized by cryptocurrency and gold and paper returns.
Yes.
And so, of course, uninformed people with a desire for a quick win can be mesmerized by that. But the best investment of any of the resources that the country has available, if you have free money available now, it's not to put it in gold or in cryptocurrency. It's to set up the economy properly, invest in the foundations of production, because that's where you learn.
Yeah.
If you put all your money in gold, you're going to have the gold, and maybe over time, the asset value, the capital gains will come. But there will be nothing, you will learn nothing from that. The human society is a learning society. And if you want to develop your economy, you have to set up production systems, because that's where you learn. You learn by doing, you learn by experience. Most of human learning comes from that. What you call common sense, for example, comes from that. Science, of course, is all about that. So you've got to set up the production systems and allow for rapid growth in our capacity to learn, to understand nature, to understand ourselves, and to allow us to cook up new solutions to problems, like the way cell phones came about.
Okay, so what's an example of that in terms of, as you said, the production system? Is it still keeping with the oil and gas?
No, that's my point. You have to diversify the economy. We know how that should be done. That's where I was going down the road with the business of allowing for a new track of entrepreneurship. So we have the private sector, and we have an incompetent macro state. Now we need to look at the micro state, the communities, and see what they can bring. That's a third layer of entrepreneurial agility. It's like asking yourself in Trinidad, what would Pan have become if Laventil had enough power to invest in its future? You saw what it could do without any power and complete dependence on the central government for its existence. But if Laventil was an empowered community, Pan would be $1 billion business today, as you could see from the experience with Spree Simon and Bertie Marshall, the Hammer, and so on. So there is no issue, in my view, about the need to shift from the aggregative investment capacity of the state down to the micro investment capacity of the state. That would be one. Then what that would do is allow you to move into the exploitation of our creative industry potential. That's what steel band and calypso, the carnival industries generally, that's what those are about. But you see it elsewhere in the world, like as I was pointing out to you, in a place like Malta, where your communities, you look in Loma Linda in California with the blue zones and so on, places like those in Japan. So what you're seeing is that the communities are able to set up entrepreneurial units. The community itself is a kind of business, safe, healthy, happy. And the result of that is that you create a whole new track of health tourism that mirrors what Cayman and Bermuda are doing with financial tourism. Now, when people come into Trinidad and Tobago, on that basis, they don't come for a couple of days, go to the beach and head out. What they would do is spend a month, 2 months, 3 months to enjoy. In Cayman, when you go there as a person to take part in the financial services industry, you spend 3 months to do your contracts and work through your stuff. And the firms, the international firms in that business, go there and set up staff and other things like those. That's right. So that keeps you there long. And on that track, they have produced an economy that is outperforming the US, outperforming the so-called developed countries of the world without anything like oil and gas, all based on international collaboration to produce the capitals. So that's the way we have to go.
So in other words, I mean, just diversifying reserves into precious metals, would that kind of provide a meaningful protection against energy price volatility? Yeah.
Volatility?
Yes, volatility.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, as I said, insurance is good, and that's what your Heritage and Stabilization Fund is all about. So the managers of that fund has been doing a decent job, in my view. Maybe that's the one thing that you can credit the country with, that the HSF has been run pretty well. And they can look into any assets that they think will boost the performance of the fund. And that's the self-insurance that we have in the country. And that can be considered. They are competent enough to make the judgment as to whether you should add Bitcoins and gold into their portfolio. If you ask me, if I had a spare $5 billion, I would not put it into gold or cryptocurrency. I would put it into changing the structure of production in the economy to give us a better chance to build capacity to cook up new solutions to problems that will make money for us. That's where our development future lies.
How does social attitudes need to change to make this diversification viable? Any kind of diversification?
Well, it's primarily the social attitudes themselves that are a function of the structure of the system. If you change the underlying arrangements for networking, including the system of government, people get a chance to practice democracy. And it's in the practice of democracy, of dialogue and compromise. Information will be shared and fully communicated through all sorts of devices for participation. And it's there that people acquire what you will call social attitudes. So if you're running an authoritarian system, then you have the vulgar attitudes of apathy and other things that we have been grappling with for the years. But if you change the structures, then we can build the positive attitudes and the innovative dispositions that we need in order to participate in the modern competitive world. That's the direction in which we have to go. When all is said and done, poor social attitudes are prescriptions for poverty. Good social attitudes are prescriptions for wealth, but you don't get them by wishing for them. You get them by setting up systems of full information sharing that will allow us to learn from one another. You got your social attitudes from parents and grandparents and other things like those, and you'll get new ones from one another too, but you have to collaborate much better, network in a more participatory way, so that information flows are not shut down. Democracies are run on the basis of the flow of information. The blood of democracy is the information flow. And if you liberate that and allow information to move up and down, top to bottom, sideways, community to community, person to person, and so on, through participatory systems, you have a chance. That's where good social attitudes come from, and you need that in order to develop.
So let's put all of this in a nutshell. You know, looking at the country's economic trajectory, what now would be the most urgent reforms to secure financial stability?
First, the most important reform and the most fundamental development, most potent development project for the country is constitutional reform to empower our people and empower our communities. That's the most potent. That's the biggest development project. So that's step one. Once that is done, what you're going to get would be reform of the the economy, because the communities will activate a development program that goes down the road I was telling you about, the production and export of capital. That's how they got to be communities from slavery to now and strict indenture to now. That's the kind of thing you see in the East Indian community. Once you liberate Palm East and so on, they'll do things very differently to the way we're doing them in Tunapuna. And that dialogue and debate and discussion up and down the country is going to create more entrepreneurial centers in the nation. And that's the direction you have to go for economic diversity. You're not going to go down the road of state dominating everything and get any development out of that. And let me remind you, my data is from the whole Caribbean, and I do a lot of this kind of work right now for the UN all over the world. Wednesday night I was teaching in Thailand, 12 o'clock in the night. So the point I'm making is we understand where that kind of thing is to come from. The main starting point is to set up ourselves in an organized way so we can run a full information system, activate our creative and innovative potential, and join the world's efforts beyond soca and pan. All other aspects of the world's effort to innovate and cook up solutions, including high quality creative services for guests when they come from abroad or tourists. All of that, good customer service, treating ourselves well when you go into stores, you are welcomed. All of that sort of stuff is what will come from a proper opportunity for the people of the society to practice democratic government and what you call good social habits. That's where we have to do.
All right. So, Dr. Vanessa James, we do have to wrap up, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, because we have so much we'd like to engage you on again, and we're hoping that we can invite you back on to the program shortly to continue the conversation.
More than welcome, anytime.
Yes, sounds beautiful.
Thank you so much.
We do have to wrap, so we do thank you for coming on, and we hope that you have a beautiful day.
Right.
To our viewers,
we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will see if we have some time to just play some videos for y'all, because we do have some videos prepared.
Yes.
But stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title. It's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movie Town, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Good morning and welcome back. So at the 48th CARICOM Heads of Government meeting in Bridgetown, Barbados, regional leaders honored Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley. Our own Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, well, former Prime Minister. It marks his retirement after a distinguished 45-year political career. What a feat. Take a look.
We, his colleagues who remain on the field, wish him well. And for me personally, coming in as Prime Minister in 2016 and meeting Prime Minister Rowley at a time when relations between Jamaica and Trinidad were possibly at an all-time low, where there were threats of boycott and threats of blocking citizens' movements. And then we met and struck up a friendship, you recall. And I said, listen, Prime Minister, come to Jamaica, come and visit me, man. Let us talk this thing over. And Prime Minister Rowley graciously accepted the visit to Jamaica. You were my first international guest. And we had a very good talk about the issues. We developed a very strong relationship. And we were able to resolve the issues. And I think today, trade is better. Movement of citizens between the two countries are better. I think the region is better. And I want to publicly say how pleased I am and how privileged I feel to have served with you as a colleague in this fraternity. And that you are truly the epitome of a Caribbean man. Definitely you will be missed on the scene, but I'm sure your voice will be heard. Walk with my friend.
Let me join.
Thank you. You know, we have a curry situation here. But I want to really say that Prime Minister Rowley and myself, we have developed a very strong friendship. He is my brother, and his contribution to Guyana is enormous from many perspectives. Many of you may not recall, but Prime Minister Rowley was the chair of CARICOM during a very difficult period after the 2020 elections in Guyana, a time when there was great tension, democracy was under threat, rule of law, and respect for the results from the elections. Prime Minister Rowley arrived from international engagement at 2 a.m. in the morning, called by Prime Minister Motley at the Bureau, members of the Bureau at that time, and made his way to Guyana. And the rest is history. democracy, rule of law, to respect for the elections, and having the region leading in the resolution was a historic moment for this region. And I want to applaud his leadership as chair and the entire team at that time that allowed CARICOM to resolve a matter within CARICOM. The second historic moment in the relationship of Guyana and Trinidad, but in the region itself, was when we achieved the Argyle Agreement in St. Vincent. You would recall that many prime ministers, and I did then, I will continue to do so, to thank the prime ministers who left their homes and journeyed to St. Vincent to help us in a very delicate time to resolve an issue where the temperature was high. And I want to thank you again, Prime Minister Rowley, for your personal commitment and your involvement in that matter. Your strong views, you know, those who know him, the stone face, don't be carried away with the stone face and the hard views. Beneath that, we have had, since my time here, very strong conversation. But at the end of it, they were all geared towards the best interests of the region and to give us the best possible result. I want to thank you for your friendship, for your guidance, and for the way in which we have been able to work together, Guyana and Trinidad, but in the region, to strengthen our relationship and our bonds. I wouldn't say I'll miss you, because I'm sure, I've said it publicly already, that the experience our leaders build up over the years must continue to be the reservoir of knowledge and also the asset that we must rely on in this region. Thank you very much for your service, sir.
If this was the Court of Appeal, and I'm the third judge to deliver my judgment, I'll just say I concur. Which I do. I concur. I encountered Keith during the course of my own political career, several over the years, but was always very, very fleeting. And my first observation was, Ifan talks about stone face. I used to say, this is a stony fella. And a stone, I mean, it's just cold. And I don't know, someone told me, I don't know whether it's Andrew or Ifan says, when I eventually became Prime Minister in 2021, said, no, he's a good guy, just get to know him. Just get to know him, and you'll know that he's a good guy. I got to know him, and he truly became a good guy. Then I realized that he was a geologist, and that's why he became what he worked with, stone. But again, he's been a rock, an anchor for the steady progress that we've made since I was here as part of the CARICOM leadership. And I've always been able to depend on him. He's been dependable as a rock. He's been as steady as a rock. And he has, as I said, been the anchor for what we've been doing over the years. And I don't think, and I've been talking to some of my colleagues, my former prime ministers in the Bahamas, and their observation has been always, they have not seen CARICOM as unified as they're seeing it today. There's always some issue, and I think, and I sense the unity. We all seem to be on one accord. We have our differences, we talk it through, and then we hug and kiss afterwards. And I think that is also due to the fact that there's always this anchor who keeps us together. And let me just tell the rock, We will miss you here. But as you know, we'll continue to call on you, and you have a place to play golf.
I just have to tell the men who continue to refer to Keith as a stony-faced person, that is not the person who moved with me on Wednesday evening when I tried to get the crowd to dance to the Christchurch Foundation Steel Orchestra. And he was up front and center helping me to bring the others. And the truth is, Keith, people talk about flying fish in Tobago, and Rafan talked about curry, but the one thing that we appreciate is your commitment always to face facts fairly and squarely. You have been highly principled, and you have been never fearful of a situation. And we will take from you that as we continue to manage our affairs in this community. And as all have said, we know that you are a phone call away, and that your love for this region is really what has driven you to excel in the manner in which you have.
What a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tribute to our own very former Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley. Naomi, what did you think? Was it?
No, it was lovely. The send-off was nice. I was impressed by each CARICOM head.
Yes,
So
and
it was
just
a
to see
nice
him be
watch.
sent off that way among his peers. And of course, we will still hear from him, as the rightfully said. So I just wanted to show that to you guys so you can see just how he's appreciated across the CARICOM community. But we're just going to jump to a show. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back in, we have so much more planned for you.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
Because the region doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country, and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of have to stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim, or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Welcome back to the program this morning. We're jumping straight along. We're shining a spotlight on the care and well-being of our elderly population. With Trinidad and Tobago's aging demographic growing, ensuring that our senior citizens receive quality healthcare, respect, and social support is more important than ever now. Joining us today are two incredible individuals dedicated to this cause: Dr. Lavanya Thondavada, founder and president of the Geriatric Society of Trinidad and Tobago, and Ms. Claire Gittins, the Society's public relations officer. Since its inception in 2023, the Geriatric Society of Trinidad and Tobago has been working to improve geriatric healthcare services, raise awareness about elder abuse, and encourage community involvement in senior care. Good morning, Dr. Thondavada and Ms. Gittins.
Morning. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. So, Dr. Lavanya, what inspired you to establish the Geriatric Society of Trinidad and Tobago, and what gaps in elderly care are you hoping to address?
Mainly, it inspired my personal life, as my father, who is a medical doctor, who passed away suddenly, at that time in Trinidad. And to know about more geriatric care, you have to study more about that. That's why I did my gerontology program in University of Minnesota. Then I realized we need that care in Trinidad and Tobago. That's why I started the Geriatric Society in 2023 in October. And there is a lot of gaps for the elderly care, especially the policies, which was like more than 10 years ago it was implemented. Whenever the country is more than 10% elderly population, you notice as per the United Nations, you consider you have to implement some policies for our elderly population. That's why every 5 years or 10 years, we have to upgrade and implement the new policies and taking from the international standards, how they're doing what best care we need to support our elderly population.
Yes. The society takes a holistic approach to elderly care. Could you explain how it goes beyond physical health to address the psychological and social well-being of the elderly?
Okay, most of the times we looking like a medical conditions. Sometimes they would need, we not known what causing the root problems. That's why we need to spend more time with them to assess, is there any mental issues, is there any domestic problems. They need some kind of support. That's why the holistic approach is very important while we taking care of our elderly population.
Yeah. Ms. Gittins. So public awareness plays a big role in changing attitudes towards the elderly. So how has the Geriatric Society used media and community engagement? I would assume that would be, because I mean, in the times that we're in now, I think technology, social media, all these things are probably the best ways that we can get society to be educated on the importance of elderly care and respecting the elderly. So how do you all incorporate that into the society?
Okay, since the formation of the society, we have been involved in a lot of different types of activities to encourage the elderly to be involved and to help the population to be more respectful and involved in the care of their elderly relatives and other people in the community. So that we have been engaged in having health fairs across the country, and we continue that. We're due to have one later this month, between this month and next month. We have also visited a lot of homes for the elderly to see what care is being taken and offer suggestions based on especially the physical health care of the elderly in the homes. In keeping with, there's legislation that talks to homes for the elderly, which there's still a lot to be done to improve that overall. There are a lot of homes for the elderly, and in many of them, they need a lot of assistance in improving the care that is offered to their residents. And so we offer advice by visiting them, meeting with them in different fora. And also, we have also done activities to involve the elderly. Say we have had, we encouraged, for instance, we had a sip and paint thing that was very successful, where, I mean, many of them came from different homes, and I think they were wondering, I mean, how could they paint and stuff like that, but they were very excited, and with some assistance from our volunteers and us, they were able to produce some wonderful work. I mean, it was challenging because some of them needed their caregivers to help them to do the painting and stuff. So that was a very successful thing, and then we had also lunches for them, and we had volunteers providing entertainment, which they really enjoyed, and be involved in like the dancing and stuff. We also did water aerobics. We had a group that does water aerobics, offer one day free aerobics for them, and again that was well appreciated. And some of them have followed up, joining the group to do their water aerobics. We have also been offering counseling. Myself, trained in social work, 32 years experience in social work, both in the public service and the private sector. And we have been offering assistance and guidance to people who call in and ask for help for the elderly, be it from finding homes for their loved ones, assistance with telling them what to do, or even helping them through their getting social welfare in the various things, because some of them had some severe problems. For instance, we had a guy who was in hospital, and he lived at the top of a hill in Limova, and he had problems. When he was due to be discharged from hospital, his relatives knew that he could not go back where he was living. And so with our assistance and working with the social welfare department, we were able to get a smooth transition from the time he left hospital to go straight into this home, which was, the relatives were very thankful for our assistance in that respect. So that we have been given that kind of assistance wherever we are asked to do so to the population of Trinidad and Tobago generally. Mm-hmm.
So what has been the impact of these programs, of these the sip and paint, the aerobics? What has been the impact of this on the yes?
Oh, they have been, I think they are very, we have encouraged some of them to understand that they still have life. I mean, I think I'm one of the oldest members of the society, but so I mean, I'm elderly myself, and they have been encouraged, and we have been trying to encourage them. For last year, for instance, based on Lavania's efforts, we had many of them playing a carnival band on Carnival Monday. Actually, when we did it, some of the people in the band, we did have a bus for when they got tired, you know, to go and sit down. And we had a banner, Geriatric Society. And some of the younger people in the band were very upset that we would have a banner or anything marked Geriatric Society. Why would you all do that? So, I mean, I had to talk to them and explain why and stuff. And also for the people, the public, when they see it, to know that our elderly people are very much involved in that part of our culture.
Yes.
And for this year, we were able, thankfully, to get the NCC to offer seats in the grandstand for 150 of our elderly people to go. And Lavanya, thankfully, she delivered a lot of the tickets to them personally, and the remarks coming from them were very, very appreciative. And they both from the volunteers and staff of our society, as well as the staff from NCC. They said they were great ambassadors for the NCC, which we conveyed to the NCC. You know, so we plan to do more of that kind of activity. We also planning, which is in the very early stages, to have something like a sports day for them, but that involves a lot of careful planning. So maybe very much later this year, early next year, we will finally be able to bring that to fruition. You know,
so it seems that you guys have been doing a lot of good. What were the? Oh, sorry, you wanted to.
You mentioned about why these kind of activities. Why means continue activity, improves the mental ability and physical ability as well. They have, once you retire, most of them saying, you know, staying at home, watching TV, those things makes more like depression and these kind of things. If they come outside and involve in a community activities, lot of health issues will come down. Especially one of the senior member who went to grandstand, she's in 80s. After 8 years, she mentioned, I went to grandstand. And she enjoyed a lot, and she personally called me. She met a new friends, you know. She lime and even after sip and paint, they met like a new friends. After finish, they went to mall and lime. You see, these things make them more happy.
Yes. Wow.
That's why we doing all this activity, continue activity for elderly population.
And we have been thankful. We must mention that we have some business community and other that have been quite helpful in giving assistance to help us to carry out these activities. We would really like to plan things like outings for them. Again, that is a very challenging thing because of the various levels of mobility, but it can be done. So again, we need to work with PTSD and other things, and of course they have their caregivers, to give them that kind of exposure to remember that they are people too. That not because, as Lavanya said, we pass 65, that we are the forgotten people.
Yes.
And I think somewhere along the line, I would like to have, I remember some years ago, when I was in Ministry of Social Development, that there was a community where they encourage young people. The young people had they had a project to do, to meet older people in the community and to visit them and talk with them for 3 months and then come back and report. And it was both rewarding to the elderly people they engaged as well as to the younger people to understand what former lifestyles in Trinidad and Tobago and how it varied from how lucky many of them are now. And I remember one lady was a descendant of, I believe, one of the last people that came on the boats from India. And the young man was really thankful to hear about her experiences, both from what life was in India and then coming to Trinidad, and the early days, what she had to endure and bringing up her family and stuff like that. And again, the young gentleman recognized how fortunate he was to be living a life as he did with his parents of today. You know, that he didn't have, of course, many of the older people, their survival instincts, maybe in some respects, were better than some of ours in today's world. But nevertheless, I think that is worth encouraging. And our society, because of that, we have various levels of people and we have volunteers. And a lot of our volunteers, and more so, are coming from the school communities, secondary school level. And they have been very involved in what we do. And coming out to all of our activities when, of course, their programs permit it, because a lot of them are in 5th and 6th forms. So that we are very thankful to have them on board. Again, leading to the understanding and the the gradual
it's also bridging the gap
between the various ages.
This is called like intergenerational changes.
Yes.
The younger people have to involve with the elderly population, like to interact with them, to get more knowledge and experiences from them. That is have to be implemented as a compulsory in a secondary schools and in UV as well.
Of course. Would you call for that, for it to be mandatory
Yes,
across all
because
schools?
most of the secondary schools children are involved, and these days UV people also involved, like who joined recently, like medicine or engineering or business, whoever involved since 2023.
Right. So that actually leads me, I want to find out, in your opinion, what do you think are the most important or urgent policy changes that you think Trinidad and Tobago needs for us to better support the elderly society?
Okay, this is not like a one ministry has to do, like a Ministry of Health, Aging Division, the transport and the housing. Why I need to mention housing as well. They need, once you're getting older, most of the patients getting falls. Why? Okay, the housing structure has to be changed, like a non-slippery floor, and where they need the rails. Even if they're living at their own home also, they have to modify their structure. Even in the kitchen cabinets, when they are in a wheelchair, how they built up their cabinet, how they cooking for themselves. These, everybody has to involve, the sports has to involve. It's like not one division, I can say that.
But coming back to, that's a very good point there with housing. I think we have to work more strenuously to involve the Ministry of Housing to be aware when they're building new structures for the elderly as well as other people who have some kind of mobility issues, to make the housing units, all of them, as if everybody was disabled. For instance, make the doorways accessible for wheelchair, because many of them live in homes that the wheelchair can't pass in the doorways. And also in terms of the passages in the individual units to accommodate that, as well as the bathroom and toilet facilities. So that should be a policy at government level that we need to push to make that possible, and also to create some, I think like it's done in England in their social system, that when people get to make arrangements, when people become disabled or, well, unable, they might not be technically that disabled, but unable to operate in the milieu, like the 4 stories system, thing we have, to have methods to exchange them to a lower floor, the bottom floor for instance, to accommodate there, to help appreciate them more and help them to live as normal lives as possible. Right?
I would like to continue on this conversation a little bit. What do you think is the general sentiment that people have towards the elderly population? Because aging is not new.
No. For a long while, and having, as I say, worked extensively in the social services, we have had the thing where, and it is very difficult in understanding if we talk about parenting. For instance, our parenting thing suggests that we only talk about children as under 18. But parenting is along a continuum, because what I discovered in my work experience is that given our modern world and where we are heading, we have the nuclear family system. The extended family doesn't exist anymore, where we got a lot of help from each other for all the various generations. But with the coming of the nuclear family, everybody is busy studying to improve their lives and their situations, so that when they have their own children to look after, they now become parents. And as long as their elderly relatives, especially mothers, can look after their children, it's all right. But when that elderly person gets sick, then it becomes a burden for that. People have usually 35 to 45, 50 to manage how to get to pay for care for their children now, and also what do they do with the elderly. So we found a lot of them abandoning the elderly, unable to cope to meet the demands of the added financial issues there. And that has been a big issue that we have been trying to work at individually and even in lectures and stuff to help people to understand, to get over that, and by helping them too to give more assistance to the elderly, if even they have to put them in a home, because some of them put them in homes, they might pay for them on a monthly basis. Those who are on social welfare, well, the social welfare goes straight to the home, so some of them don't visit the relatives at all. Yes. To encourage them to go and take them out, you could carry them back to the home to understand, and especially Christmas and particular days, carry them out. All right. I had the personal experience of an older sister, and we had her in a home, but we would take her and carry her out and drop her back in. Of course, she always wanted to come home, but you have to deal with that. So that again, at that level, I think we also need to work at more policy decisions at the government level in terms of, I don't know where they're going to find the money to give in more assistance to homes that cater for the elderly. Because often, while we have legislation to dictate how the elderly should be cared for in these homes, often the monies, if you run in a business to look after the elderly, you have to cater for staff and stuff. And what is available through senior citizens pension and stuff really can't give the good care that is demanded by the legislation. So there's a gap between what is in the legislation and what actually happens. Yes. So they need to give some subventions to the homes to help them to improve their care for the elderly. Yes. Because that's when sometimes there are a lot of problems in caring for them, changing of staff, sometimes abuse steps in. And we have to also insist on more training for the caregivers in homes, which I think has been happening, but we need to see that it happens more and continues to improve, because they're different, and some of the homes, incidentally, and that's where relatives have problems again with caring for their own elderly, because some of the homes will not take people that have certain kinds of disabilities. They don't have the staff to cater for them, and that can lead to certainly to abuse sometimes. If we have people who have
they have to pay like an additional cost for the caregivers who have like a health issues and all these, that's why the pensions, if they go straightly go to the home care, due to the cost of living, they cannot accommodate all the services and paying the caregiver, a lot of them struggling for that as well. Yes. And these days we're getting a lot of calls locally and internationally as well. They want a best homes with reasonable cost to put their loved ones, even Point 14 we're getting calls, San Fernando and Cascade, Petty Valley, and recently I visited a lot of homes. Some people can afford to pay, but they're looking at best home. Yeah. They want like a... And we're considering the livelihood of the caregiver as well.
Yeah, and certainly what is available in senior citizens pension can give them at least the best standard of care that is necessary according to the legislation. So there's this gap. So I think as a society, we need to work more forcefully in trying to assist in that area. Yes. Because certainly some of them, the elderly in the home, but they just lie down whole day. Yes. And that is not, what level of existence that is. And even when we did visits carrying packages for them, and certain firms gave us gifts to carry for them, like help with mattresses, blankets, fans, and stuff like that. They want us to stay with them and sing with them, and when you sing with them, they're so happy to join in the singing and stuff, They're very happy. So they want to be involved to show that they still have life.
They're asking us.
Yeah. So, and we're not able, I think, to do as much as we can, given our limited...
I understand you all have a goal, or the society has a goal to establish geriatric clinics across the country.
Yes, yes.
How feasible is that at the moment, or if not, what support would you require from the public or government to make this happen?
Okay, the clinics, how are we treating the children? Pediatric clinics, they have a pediatric clinics.
Right.
Same way we have to treat our elderly as well. To give prioritize, we have to give like a specialized clinics for them both in primary care and tertiary level to assess them, you know, every 3 months in a regular basis, because they need a regular health checkups, including eye checkups and dental care. Once you're getting old, all these problems we need to consider. That's why the government has to implement that in public sector.
Right.
And if you go through internationally, everywhere they have a geriatric clinics, like age-friendly clinics in primary care and tertiary care level.
Okay, I understand a little bit more now, because I was thinking what exactly you meant by the geriatric
treat
clinic.
Them like
yes,
children.
it's right. You're right.
Pediatric. Okay, why geriatric? We have to give specialized care
yes.
for them.
And actually, the failure to have that existing actually puts more burden on us as taxpayers when you think about it. Yeah, and I think that's a part that we don't think of, what it means to the taxpayer not to provide these services to keep them as healthy as possible. And we need to stress that. So maybe one of our thoughts are to have, maybe to see if we get some radio stations, TV stations or radio stations, to give us some free spots that we can have different people talking on different aspects to the elderly and to people who have elderly relatives, to help them, assist them more in caring for these and involving them in their daily lives, you know.
I definitely think the conversation is one to be had. It's very enlightening, and to kind of get rid of the misconceptions, because a lot of people tend to, we put the elderly aside because we're like, you know, they live their life already. You know, that it's coming to an end.
That's why each our educational program, our training, we're telling them, be independent. Don't think you're retired and depending on other people, even though caregivers or anybody. As much as possible, live independent.
Yes.
And these things will get rid of, you know, more hospital admission rates, you know. If you do more health checkups, you know, you can cut down the hospital admission rate too.
And when we think about it, because science and technology has meant that people are living longer lives, that there's a real gap in terms of, we accept that people living longer, but we are not doing enough to provide, to ensure that they are living longer healthily. Again, when we think of the cost, let's think of economic costs. I mean, I hated economics as a subject, but you can recognize the costs that is incurred by the general public when we fail to provide these necessary services that would reduce the hospitalization and stuff of many of our elderly.
And coming to add on this, the digital technology, they need to get more education on this as well. These days, they're not accustomed to adapt these technologies. They need more training on that as well.
Well, I think, to be honest, they have been providing that, encouraging them, and there have been particular banks that have initiated programs and training programs for the elderly, to help them as best as possible to understand more of and live more in the technological age. I mean, I myself need a lot of that.
It's still most of them going to the banks and they're saying after they get the pension, somebody robbed the money, you know. All this happening these days as well.
And it definitely happens. I've heard stories. It hasn't happened to anybody I know personally, but I've heard instances where in the homes it happens. The caregivers, they take advantage, and it's sad.
And sometimes it's not really so. I often wonder why, again from my experience in social work, why it seems to be a tendency. I mean, I haven't done any research on it, I don't know, that when they get older, they tend to focus a lot and they want to see their bank book and how much money they have in the bank and who taking money out of their bank account. I mean, even without it happening, that there's this, for many of them, and I say, there's a facet of aging, a normal facet of aging, that they become very concerned about their bank account, you know. Or even recently I had to visit a home to arrange some business, and the man doesn't want anybody to come in his home because he feels, and this has happened because his wife died suddenly last year, and all of a sudden, you know, it has led to a great degree of thing in his progression in terms of living and his mental capacity. But he doesn't want anybody to come in his home because he thinks everybody's coming to steal from him. So that he's very secluded, and his caregiver is having a very tough time in dealing with him because of this. So again, all these little things exist that somehow or other we need as many people as possible to help.
This is why we also need to be patient with the elderly, because I mean, my grandmother, she's old, she's 80 something, and she every time I go to visit her, I realize more and more, you know, her mentals are, they're changing. I don't want to say declining, but they're changing. Sometimes it's hard to talk to her. Sometimes, you know, you're like, Granny, what are you talking about? So you see the difference, but you just have to be compassionate. I think compassion is a big, one of the biggest things that we have to have with the elderly.
But we need to be educated about that.
Yes.
I remember one of my grandmothers, when she got older, and you know, mommy and them thought about putting somebody in her house to help her care. Everybody get out of my house. I don't want anybody in my house. So she's just alone, and this is something you have to fight with, because from her generation and the family size, they moved to a lot of places. So she would go back to a lot of the places that somehow still existed in the Newtown area, where they moved from Cipriani Boulevard to Woodford Street to Picton Street, and go, and she loved gardening, and she would go in the houses and tell the people, get out of her house, you know, and that kind of thing. So in terms of her Alzheimer's condition, we had a lot to deal with, and finally put her in a home, you know. But it involved a lot of things. And then further to that, what happened is her sister, who had lived in Venezuela, came back to Trinidad, and again was in difficulty, and we put her in the same home. And I remember visiting them and crying, because these two people sit down next to each other to talking, and they don't recognize that they're sisters. We laughing, but I mean, if you're involved in a situation, it's really difficult to see and to understand the level to which the brain function declines, you know. So we have a lot.
There's so much, because the thing is, we're going to be very likely that's in our if
the world lives that long. Yes.
Well, I mean, we do have to come to a close now, but I just want to find out, you know, how can members of the public get involved more with the society?
Okay, we give out some contact numbers. Right now we changing locations in terms of having a physical space. Lavanya,
we have the forms available in our website, the membership forms, aged over 65, and the membership forms for age less than 65 as well. And who would like to volunteer, there is a forms as well. They can send the forms to the email. We're going to respond. If any events coming up, we're going to call personally and tell them. And we have a website, ttgeriatrics.org.
And what's the email?
Email ttgeriatrics@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. And they can send directly to the email, or they can call and they can WhatsApp us, and we can immediately contact. And one of the student volunteer have organizing like a WhatsApp group. Whoever volunteers, she adding, if any event coming up, she going to post it in the volunteer group, and whoever free on that days, they will come.
And perhaps we need to organize some training for people who volunteer. You know, again, I mean, like I was involved in Rape Crisis Society, and everybody who joined and volunteered, we put them to training. So maybe we need to do that, which would encourage us perhaps to help us to do more programs for the elderly in terms of your level of education and how you are available to do that. That would again help. So these are all ideas we need to continue to follow. But I think one of the priorities would be to work at the government level to ensure that the policies that have been put in place, like to follow the legislation, to bring them nearer to actual functioning of homes for the aged and other services.
And the clinics
right?
as well.
Yeah.
And the younger
Housing.
generation has to be involved. All these things we have to work on.
So it's a big task.
Yeah, it's a big.
Of course. No, but
And next month we have a next event coming up, and soon we're going to advertise about what events.
I mean, I think Jane and I can both agree we absolutely support 100% the society, this cause. I think it is something that we need to be educated more on.
Yeah.
And as young individuals, I think we can speak for all young persons. We would love to support the society and learn. But Dr. Lavanya, Ms. Gittins, thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning. We will reach out for your upcoming events, and we would love to have you back on the program and, you know, continue discussions.
And just to reiterate, for anybody out there that would like to get involved or would like to volunteer, you can go to their website, which is ttgeriatrics.org, or you can email them at ttgeriatrics@gmail.com. Go on and go support.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Of course, of course. So we're going to move along really quickly. We have to come to a close, but before we go, we're going to play two really, really lovely videos for you just to commemorate World Down Syndrome Day. So have a look.
I think this dress could be really nice.
Or maybe this one a little less formal.
It pairs well with her beautiful smile.
I want to be where this decision is made. Where this decision is made. I want to have a say in the dress that I wear. Don't you think that it's fair? Let me have a look at these clothes. You want the truth? I don't like any of those.
The objective of this meeting is to approve this new proposal for an elegant and functional train station.
I want to be where this decision is made. Where this decision is made. If I'm here, I can help you recall that what's right for some isn't always right for all.
Here's the new place for all supplies. You might not realize that for me it's too high.
When you do this, you got to dash.
Our info points now have touch screens.
It's great for those who are able to see.
During my term, we'll write new laws.
So
give us a seat too.
We want to be where the decisions are made. Where the decisions are made. It's time for us to be one and two. Where the decisions are made.
This is what I'll wear.
My name's Emer Flanagan. I'm Maisie.
My name is Dylan Lennon.
I'm Orla Casey.
My name is Anthony.
So Maisie was born in 2021. She's very kind and caring and very loving. We had a prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome. So when I was pregnant, I was told that there was a hole in the heart. It was very, very scary. She was going to have heart surgery at 3 months old, and that this particular heart defect was linked to DS. So that's how we got the two diagnoses together. There was so much worry over her heart. And then I had a fear of the unknown when it came to the Down syndrome diagnosis. I just didn't know what to expect. And then Maisie came early. I just was so excited to hold her, and everything just felt okay.
I have two jobs. Murphy is a big hotel. I work in a restaurant. I do cleaning. UTS, I'm doing tests, tokens, and do kinds. Make sure they're working properly. My team colleagues are perfect, helpful, and nice.
JLL is a real estate company that I work for. So I'm basically the business administration. So I work with different departments, and I'm a part-time actress as well.
I need my sister. I work for Cloud 50, the power source. I like my job, yes.
Every Wednesday, I'm in down Central Ireland for Skills Academy Employment Team. They looking for a shops.
World Down Syndrome Day is basically a day of other people accepting people with Down syndrome. Inclusion is important for everyone, like regardless if we have a disability or not. It's just being accepted.
I'm the member support officer, so I would probably be the first port of call for anybody, you know, with all sorts of queries.
After a few weeks, I reached out. I was talking to a lovely lady, Annette. I just felt she gave me such lovely advice. She was very kind and reassuring.
We're getting new parents, expectant parents now, which that wasn't a thing either when I started.
Well, when I was a child growing up, my dream job was being an actress. I was on RTE's Clean Sweep. I was on Bodkin. The reason why I love acting is to bring joy to other people. Support our dreams.
Support her dreams.
Support our dreams.
Support in my dreams.
And support my dreams too.
Thank you for supporting Down Syndrome Ireland.
What's happening? Oh, yes, so acting, cooking, cleaning. So sorry about that. Acting, cooking, cleaning, all of these things that all people can do.
Yeah.
But specifically people with Down syndrome that we got to see.
The first video, that was a campaign entitled No Decision Without Us.
Yes.
I absolutely love that video. That was done by an Italian organization that advocates for the rights of people with Down syndrome called Core Down. The second video is another campaign, Support Our Dreams, done by done by the Down Syndrome Ireland, and that campaign is to emphasize the importance of supporting individuals with Down syndrome. So those two videos, I think, spoke for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely enlightened us a little bit on the capabilities of people with Down syndrome. It's not a disability, you know, they are regular people just like you and I, you know, and they're just different, and it's okay, you know.
Yes, so I just wanted to add, yes, to reiterate what you said.
Yeah.
They're very, very capable, and when we go about our days, and we maybe meet somebody that has Down syndrome, or whether we work with somebody that has Down syndrome, just remember that they're just like you. They're not to be treated or pampered or anything like that. They're just like you, so treat them as you would anybody else, with respect and with kindness.
Of course.
So happy World Down Syndrome Day, guys.
2025.
Yay!
All right, so to end off today's show, we have a quote: "A river cuts through a rock, not because of its power, but because of its persistence." This is by James N. Watkins. So this quote, to me, emphasizes the resilience and perseverance. It kind of reminds us to, you know, keep pushing, don't give up, and no matter what, because you will eventually get where you need to be or where you want to be.
I think that is the sentiment of the week: resilience and strength. So go about your day, guys, with resilience and strength.
So with that, we wrap up another week with you. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've been with us every day this week, again, we appreciate you starting your morning with us.
Yes.
So it's Friday, the weekend is here. Stay safe this weekend and stay inspired. We will see you again on Monday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
WESN. Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.